He ignores you, and the first instinct is to think you're the problem, that somehow your worth has diminished in his eyes. But what if the silence you hear isn't a judgment of your value, but a confession of his own hidden battle? What if his coldness is not strength, but fear in disguise? Carl Jung once said we see in others what we're unwilling to face within ourselves. So when a man pulls away, when he ghosts, when he treats your presence like background noise, it may not be rejection. It may be a mirror he's avoiding. Because within every man is a place he doesn't want anyone to see. The parts he's shoved deep down, hoping no one notices. That fear of needing someone. That voice whispering he's not enough. That pain from a wound he never healed. When he ignores you, it may be those shadows rising inside him triggered by how deeply he actually feels. Silence can be armor, not because he doesn't care, but because he's terrified that he does. And to acknowledge it, to make it real, would unravel the false sense of control he clings to. The tragic part is that many women take this silence as a puzzle to solve. They chase the mystery, try to crack the code, thinking his distance is a wall they are meant to break through. But that pursuit only drags you into his storm. Because power isn't found in reaction, it's found in reflection. When you stop asking, why doesn't he see me? And start asking, why am I waiting to be chosen by someone hiding from himself? You reclaim the narrative. He disappears because he believes you'll be there when he returns. He gambles on your patience, your longing, your hope that maybe one day he'll come back different. But what shakes him isn't your loyalty. It's the moment he senses it fading. When the woman he thought he understood becomes unpredictable, when your silence isn't submission, but sovereignty. That's when uncertainty creeps in. That's when his comfort starts to crack, because men don't fear your presence, they fear your absence. When it comes with strength, when you stop showing up in ways he didn't earn, when you stop reacting, stop posting, stop signaling that you're still watching from the sidelines, you become a mystery, not a memory. And human beings fear what they can't define. He's no longer sure what page of the story you're on, and that more than anything disturbs the script he's used to. You see, when he ignored you, he assumed the story was his to control, that your role was permanent, your heart predictable. But that illusion that only survives as long as you stay in orbit. The moment you walk out of the gravity of his ego, he's left floating, uncertain, reaching for something he didn't know he was losing until it was gone. The irony is that the very attention he withdrew becomes the very thing he craves. And the longer your silence holds, the louder it echoes inside him. He begins to peer into the same shadows he spent years avoiding. That cold distance he once used to feel and control now stings with unfamiliar weight. The absence starts to ache. The silence he once weaponized turns into a mirror. And he doesn't like what it reflects. And maybe then, for the first time, he asks himself, what did I really lose? Because when a man begins to feel the hole left by a woman who no longer waits, it's no longer about her presence. It's about the meaning that walked away with her. And that's when his weakness is exposed. Not in the moment he left, but in the moment he realizes she's not coming back just because he decides to return. He may try to reappear, subtly at first, watching your stories, liking a post, leaving a comment that reads like a whisper. But it's not attention. It's uncertainty leaking through the cracks. Because now, the woman he once thought was holding on, isn't. And in that shift, everything changes. When a woman stops chasing, stops proving, stops pleading, she doesn't lose value, she multiplies it. She becomes the one thing his ego cannot grasp. Unpredictable, unavailable, unapologetically self-assured. And that's not just powerful, it's disruptive. Because a man only ignores what he thinks he'll never lose. The moment you show him otherwise, the game is no longer his to play, and it hits him in a moment he never expected. The creeping realization that you might not be there when he decides to come back. It's not loud or dramatic, it's subtle, quiet, unsettling. The kind of thought that slips in during the silence when he's scrolling mindlessly or lying awake at night. That little whisper, what if she moved on? What if I don't matter anymore? Because here's the truth he didn't count on. The more he pulled away, the more you began to see through the illusion. He believed he could vanish, reappear, and you'd still be standing where he left you. But something shifted. Not just in the way you see him, but in how you see yourself. He ignored you because he thought he could, because you made it easy. Not out of weakness, but because you cared. And when a man senses that kind of care, some part of him thinks it's permanent, unconditional. He doesn't realize how quickly things can change when a woman remembers her worth. When a man pulls away, he often does it with a kind of smug confidence. He assumes you'll wait, that your world still spins around his, that no matter how far he drifts, he can return and find you just as he left you, waiting, hoping, forgiving. But here's what he didn't expect. You waking up to the fact that he's not the only star in your sky. He felt irreplaceable, like his presence was a gift you should be grateful for. And maybe, without meaning to, you made him feel that way. You gave more than you received. You showed up even when he didn't. You turned down your own needs to lift him up. And he got used to it, got comfortable, thought it would never change. But it does. It always does when a woman remembers that her value isn't tied to how much love she can give, but to how much she can love herself without needing permission. And when that happens, when you shift your focus away from him and back to your own life, something powerful happens. You reconnect with people who remind you of who you are. You invest your energy in those who show up for you. You go out, laugh louder, stand taller. You remember dreams you had before you even came along. And without doing anything to punish him, without a single game or dramatic move, you start pulling away, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. And that's when it hits him. That false sense of superiority starts to crumble. He's no longer the center of your attention. He starts to feel that unfamiliar emotion he thought only you were supposed to feel. Uncertainty. That quiet dread that maybe, just maybe, he doesn't matter like he used to. He believed he was essential to your happiness, that you needed him to feel whole. But the moment you stop proving your worth and start embodying it, he sees the truth. You never needed him. You chose him. And now you're choosing yourself. There's a kind of fear that settles in when a man realizes he's no longer your priority, that you've evolved past needing his validation. And suddenly he's not so sure of himself, because when a woman who once poured everything into him becomes the woman who no longer needs to explain, beg, or prove, he's left with the silence. And in that silence, the truth echoes loudest. You're no longer the one who fears loss. He is. He thought he could walk away and come back to the same place, but you're not there anymore, because you've grown, and now he's the one who has to catch up, not with flowers or apologies, but with real effort. He has to show he's worth your time, your energy, your presence, and if he can't, then he'll learn the hardest truth of all, that you can love someone deeply and still choose to walk away when that love is no longer returned, because your peace, your growth, your self-respect, those are not negotiable. And when he sees you shine without him, when he realizes he no longer has a place in your light, that's when he understands what he lost. Not because you screamed, not because you played games, but because you remembered who you are. That's the moment the power shifts. And this time, it stays with you. If he believes you'll still be there no matter how long he disappears. If he's convinced that you'll wait around for a few drops of attention, he will never feel the fear of losing you. What Carl Jung said long ago still holds weight. Humans instinctively test boundaries to see how far they can go without consequences. And in relationships, some men test women this way without even realizing it. They go cold, pull back, stay silent. Not because they're indifferent, but because they feel sure that your presence is permanent. But something shifts the moment you stop giving him the comfort of your constant validation. When that certainty vanishes, his ego stumbles. He was used to your affection as something effortless, something guaranteed. But now, the rules have changed. Suddenly he has to earn what he once took for granted. And that unfamiliar feeling creeping into his chest? It's insecurity. Jung believed the human psyche seeks out patterns, stability, so when someone he thought he understood, begin to act differently, unpredictably, he feels unsettled. He realizes the ground beneath him is no longer steady, and now he has to prove himself to you. This is what separates the woman who is cherished from the one who is overlooked. The woman who knows her worth doesn't hand out her energy to whoever asks. She doesn't chase or plead or stay where she's not respected. Her silence says more than words. And when a man senses that he might lose her, something inside him wakes up. The illusion of control is shattered, and what he wants most is her approval again. But by then, the game has shifted entirely because you've stopped playing. You're no longer sitting on the sidelines waiting for him to notice you. You've stepped into your power, choosing who gets access to your world. And that's when he begins to see your true value. Not because you yelled it, but because you showed it. The key is this. It has to be real, not a performance, not manipulation, but a genuine inner knowing that your worth was never tied to someone else's attention. Too many women wait for a man to recognize their value while they quietly ignore their own. They hope, they cling, they pour their love into someone who only returns fragments. But Jung said, right, we project outward what we haven't faced within. If you keep accepting less, if you keep giving to someone who gives you nothing back, you're telling your own subconscious that you're not enough. And that belief will quietly sabotage everything until you decide to break it. Picture the moment when he finally realized that you don't need him to feel beautiful, powerful, complete. He looks for the old pattern, your instant reply, your patient smile, and finds nothing but your absence. And that's when panic sets in. The man who once thought he had time, who thought he could leave and return whenever it suited him, suddenly faces the truth. You are no longer waiting. And for the first time, he feels real fear. Not fear of losing you as a person, but of losing what you made him feel. Important, wanted, safe. And in that space, when the power shifts, ask yourself, do you even want someone who only sees your value once you stop giving it freely? Do you really want a connection that depends on fear instead of love? A woman who knows she has options doesn't fall apart when one man pulls away. She doesn't crumble when the texts stop or the silence stretches on. She understands something most don't. Real love doesn't require you to audition for it. It doesn't demand you shrink yourself to fit into someone else's lack of effort. The ones who ignore you today, the ones who act unbothered or detached may seem strong, but often they're the most afraid. Afraid of losing control, afraid of no longer being the center of your world, afraid of realizing too late that they wasted something rare. And if you take what you've learned, if you rebuild your confidence, become emotionally grounded, stop accepting crumbs, and start demanding the feast you deserve, they will feel that shift. They will see it in how you carry yourself, in your silence, in your absence, and they will have a choice. Rise to meet you or fall away. But the real question isn't what he'll do. The question is, do you want to be with someone who only treats you right when he's afraid you'll leave? Or do you finally understand that you deserve someone who chooses you with clarity, with consistency, without you having to prove anything? The woman who knows who she is doesn't collapse when someone walks away. She doesn't bend. She doesn't chase, and she certainly doesn't beg. She shines. She moves forward. She builds a life so rich and full that being chosen by her is the prize. And when she walks into a room, she doesn't have to say a word. Her energy does all the talking. So if you've spent nights waiting, if you've questioned your worth because someone couldn't see it, it's time to stop. The moment you shift your focus inward, everything around you begins to change. The world reacts to the energy you give it. That man who thought you'd always be there, he'll start to feel the absence he never thought possible. He'll remember the warmth, the support, the light, and realize he lost it. And now it's your turn to choose. Do you stay in the cycle, hoping he wakes up one day? Or do you become the woman who never again waits for someone to see her? The woman who doesn't just know her worth, but lives it, breathes it, owns it. Because your power was never in his hands. It was always in yours.